Nigeria's commercial nerve center, Lagos, generates an excess of 13,000 metric tons of waste daily. This has been attributed to the overpopulation of the state. The situation is further complicated with the huge tons of waste generated in some markets that pose an environmental and health challenge to Lagosians. To address this, the Lagos Waste Management Authority, LAWMA, says it will shut down Ladipo and Oyingbo markets indefinitely due to reckless waste dumping, refusal to pay for waste services, and general poor waste management. Though LAWMA says it is doing its best at keeping Lagos clean, huge piles of refuse dumped are still scattered in different areas of the state. Meanwhile, there is a tussle between private waste collectors and government-operated waste evacuators over rights to operate side by side. Some residents say the private operators have been more efficient in terms of prompt evacuation of the wastes than those engaged by the government. Well, joining us now is the Managing Director and CEO, Lagos Waste Management Authority, Ibrahim Odumboni. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning. Thank you.
Right. 13 metric tons of waste generated daily. 13,000, I beg your pardon, generated in Lagos State on a daily. I wonder how challenging or otherwise it is managing this waste.
Thank you very much. I think for the agency, our key aim is to look after the solid waste for the entire negotiation. So we all know that we have over 20 million people living in Lagos, averagely generating about 6.5 kg per day. And to get into that by the close of day, by midnight, higher generated by negotiations are evacuated before. That's why we engage some private sector vendors to help us in the process of achieving success in doing that. So we have over 475 PSPs with us, with over 1,100 trucks between the agency and the private vendors to continue on daily basis.
Mr. Odumboni, well, talking about the challenges regarding the generation or the disposal of waste in Lagos, this latest move by the government to shut down the Ladipo and Oyingbo market, tell us more about it. Reports say the start date of this proposed shutdown is next Thursday. Tell us more about it, where the market, fell short of the laws and the government's response in this way.
So if you could recall very well, sometime last year, the two markets were shut down for the same purpose. And during the black period, we had a discussion about sustainability and ensuring that the things they are shut for are not something that could be should not be repeated. Eventually, we've seen over the last 3 months that they've gone back to the previous practice that led to the shutdown last year. Last year, Ladipo market was shut down by the agency for 4.5 weeks, and Oyingbo market was shut down for a week plus at that particular point in time. And the two markets almost have a similar practice that have led to the shutting down of the market. So if I'll give you an example. With Ladipo market, for the regular dwellers of that market, they will look at the entrance of the market. It's extremely dirty, simply because they don't have, even the waste bin that we provided for them, in some cases, is being avoided, and people are dumping indiscriminately at the place of their trade. And it is a requirement that every market sweeps their market before they close for the day, and sweep as they go along or throughout the day. But in a situation where we have a market there's no market sweepers, they're not sweeping their market on a regular basis, you can imagine what it will turn to within a week or even a month. We're talking about 3 months. So it looks like a place where And we don't want anything like an outbreak in Lagos. Now we have monkeypox and everything around, so we need to try and do our best to avoid that. Also, for the canals and drainages that are near those markets, we cleared them last year. And I know the Office of Drainage Services from the Ministry of Environment have gone ahead to clear the one behind Ladipo Market, to be specific. And the last time we visited this location, we've seen that some of the dwellers have gone back to put refuse in there. So the requirement for them to actually be, to avoid the shutting down of the market by this Thursday, which is tomorrow, is for them by close of day today, by midnight today, all the canals that they blocked should be cleared, all the drainages should extremely be cleared. And you mentioned at the beginning that we have these private sector participants that help us in the clearance of those markets. So in a place where a private company has cleared a market for 1 year, 6 months, and they are owed money for their services for 1 year or 6 months. And every time they go to the market or the agency tries to mediate between them, is always one excuse or the other. So you don't expect such a thing to be left without being attended to. So for us, it's very important that we keep all our PSPs afloat. They are the ones that have kept Lagos going for over the last 30 years. And we will not tolerate a situation whereby now that we have diesel at 800, 750, 800, they've been working without pay for 6 months, 1 year. There's no way they'll be sustainable, and we don't want an outbreak in Lagos. So I've spoken to all the market executives. I've spoken to the local government chairman involved. We've spoken to the Ministry of Local Government Affairs. Everybody, we've spoken to the Yaloja, the Babalojas. They've all intercepted in this. They've mediated. They've started doing some actions. I noticed during my tour around those two markets yesterday, some changes they are making. But it's not about making a change to avoid the shutdown. It's about putting a sustainable process in place. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ibrahim, I'm just going to ask, perhaps you share with us the duration of this shutdown, and if that's perhaps, again, the only language the traders understand, shutting down the markets. Is that the only language they understand?
No, so for us to look at shutting down their markets, that's the last option, the last resort. We've tried everything. Imagine when you're trying to mediate, you're trying to talk to someone to change their practice, change their ways on a weekly basis for the last 6 months, and the same action is still being repeated. Whereas the vendors and Lagos State Waste Management Authority were going on a daily basis to evacuate. Take for Ladipo, for example, Oyingbo, for example. If you drive past the market on a regular basis, you will see that there are shops that are built in that market. Why are they not behind their fence? Why are they not in those shops? Why must you trade on the main road? And you're hanging on the main road, you're trading there, you're cutting your vegetables. At the end of the day, you leave those vegetables there. We have sweepers there that sweep that area for 17 hours a day. It's not easy to sweep. But if they change their practice, these people will come, they will do what they need to do, and then they can prepare for the next day easily. We clear the market, waste the bin. 4 times a day we lift that bin. But anyway, anytime you go past it, it looks as if it's never been lifted. Because they have alternative bin that we give them inside, they will not use it. Everybody chooses to just use one, and they will leave it for LAWMA to come and sweep as they are sitting down. We will sweep where they are as they are sitting down. We put in the bin ourselves. We'll go and dispose at the dump site, come back again and do the same process 4 times. How long can that continue? How long? We need to do the right thing. Market is there for them to make a sustainable living for themselves, to help the economy and boost things. It's not for us to create a situation whereby we're going to be encouraging an outbreak in Lagos. No, because what that simply means is in times that we have challenges, short challenges, there will be a bad repercussion for negotiations through those 2 markets. And we're not just talking to those 2 markets. There are other markets that we've sounded a note of warning to as well, like Tejuosho market, like Katangwa market, Okodo market. We have over 450 markets in Lagos. But the real thing is everybody should do what they need to do so that negotiation can of what the government expects.
One of the things that my colleague asked that you're here to address is the duration for this closure of both markets, the Ladipo market.
Like I said in our publication, when we shut this market down, they will be shut indefinitely until they've remediated all the points that we've given them. Each of these markets have a list of actions that they're expected to take, which was given to them last Thursday. It was given to them even before Thursday. So 7 days ultimatum to correct it. So it's like a tick box exercise for them. And it's all achievable, very smart, timely achievable. So they need to ensure that everything is done. We're not witch hunting any market.
Right.
And any market that we go to, we will give them a set checklist of what they need to do, which is their regular thing anyway, that they've been ignoring.
Okay. All right, we need to quickly go on a commercial break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation with you. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We'll continue our conversation with regards to the closure of some markets, Ladipo and Oyingbo markets, indefinitely by the Lagos State Waste Management Authority. And we still have speaking with us the Managing Director and CEO, Lagos Waste Management Authority, Ibrahim Odumboni. Now, before we went on the break, you were talking about the fact that you visited some of the markets that has to be closed indefinitely, and that you saw that they made some changes. But what you intend to see is a sustainable process put in place to address this matter of waste management. I'm wondering what that sustainable process is. That question is on the one hand, and the other hand is the fact that this is reoccurring. Doesn't it speak to the fact that perhaps most of these people haven't been educated enough with regards to proper waste management, and something has to be done with regards to that?
So when we talk about sustainability for those markets in terms of the agreed forward plans, is for them to ensure that the laid down steps agreed between themselves and the agency is made so simple for even the new entrants or new traders that are just entering the market to adhere to. So last Saturday was World Cleanup Day, and I know some NGOs that are really concerned about the intention to shut these two markets approached us, and they've been part of what we've been talking about in terms of avoiding the shutting down of the market. So they've helped them in cleaning up. They've sat down with them to sensitize again. They've also looked at their daily routine, also look at their routine on a regular basis. And each of these markets have environmental management committee. To be honest, they do have them. And we have a market coordinator that goes to those two markets that we speak specifically on a daily basis to interact with them. And the local government have market masters that actually visit those markets consistently, nothing less than 5 times a week on a regular basis. We have health officers that work with them on a daily basis attached to us from Ministry of Environment as well. It's not that they don't have the right amount of education or sensitization or awareness on what they need to do. What we discovered during our conversation with each of the groups independently, with the local government chairman for Mushin local government present for Ladipo, and also for mainland local government, and Mrs. Essien present when we're talking to them. And it tends to be, or what we call collective responsibility is what the problem is. Individual responsibility, they seems to understand. But when it becomes a collective responsibility, who's going to do it? My shop is clean. I really don't care about the next person. Or it's not my business. It's LASEC that will do this. It's this person that will do this. So they don't have a cohesion among themselves to get this thing done. And what we've done now is we have actually looked at their smart plans and allocated responsibility to each of the groups that they have. There are things that their experts will do. Paying the bill is a must. You have to pay your bill. So who's responsible for the payment? That person should pay the bill on a monthly basis to the PSP. Pay the bill so that they can get diesel to come and service you on a regular basis. So who's responsibility is paying the bill? Whose responsibility is to ensure that people are sweeping their market on a regular basis? Whose responsibility is to ensure that illegal trading on the road that leads to the market is avoided? Whose responsibility is to ensure that on Thursdays, when they do market sanitation in Lagos, that's mandatory to all markets, that they are clearing their drainages that are surrounding them and the environment where they stay. So those kind of things is what we've all agreed to now to help with their sustainability. And then the market master from the local government will supervise them and ensure immediately that the right thing is being done, apart from what the government is regulating as well, so that we can continue to avoid shutting down markets across the state. We've done this before in a market like Dalico when it was shut last year for a week. And within that week, the market traders, the association, the Aloja General actually stepped in, and we remediated everything till today. You can go to like Dalico market in the evening, and use in the morning as early as possible, or even in the evening, and you see the market is in tip-top condition, very clean, very organized. The night traders know where to put their waste. They know they have to sweep before they leave. The day traders understand that before you go home, all your employees need to move their waste to where the bin is, and that's what we expect in Lagos.
Right.
That's what we expect to make it easy for everybody.
Right, and just for clarity's sake, even though you have indeed said a lot about the issue of the market closure, so is there no going back at all on these this two markets that will be shut down as from tomorrow? I'm looking at, we still have a day before Thursday, so is there any possibility that this will be averted when you note the impact on not just the traders, but even people who utilize this market for their needs? This on the one hand, and then when you look at the bigger picture now, the rest of residents in Lagos State, what lessons you pick from this market experience? How does it translate to the average sentiments of residents regarding refuse disposal?
So I must commend the efforts of the two resident local government chairman person where these markets are located over the last 5 days with their intervention, and also to Sweep Foundation Ambassador Phillips for his intervention in Ladipo market, plus other groups that have been involved. I know that they are working assiduously to ensure that the closure is averted. We've had a discussion with my operations team to go for an inspection sometime today to ensure that we actually check if everything they need to do is done to avoid the closure of the market from midnight tonight. So I'm quite confident with the pace of work that they are getting through in both markets, that they will probably be able to avoid the shutting down of the market. But if one of the actions that we expect them to take is not taken, I'm afraid we'll have to shut the market indefinitely until such action is remediated. And also for the lessons for household in the state is we all need to understand that doing the right thing the first time is very important for all of us. And one of the things that is causing all this is having the right receptacle. So how many households in Lagos do have a waste bin? And that's why we've said from the 1st of October this year, every household that don't have the right recommended waste bin in their house, we get an abatement notice, or don't have a bin at all in the house, we get an abatement notice. And by the 1st of January, there will be an enforcement in that regard. And another thing for lessons for people to learn as well is when it comes to solid waste, the collective responsibility is something you need to know, that nobody is above the law at all. Last week, we had two gentlemen that were actually sentenced to prison, and they are serving their jail term for their indiscriminate dumping of refuse. One was dumping refuse in drainages that are being cleared in a place like Ikeja, which is the center for all our activities. And you have someone who is within miles of where all the business happen, dumping waste in the drainage. He got a 1 year and 1 month, additional 1 month sentence in prison. And another person that was burning refuse in front of the house also get 12 months imprisonment as well. People need to understand the responsibility they need to take. And the note of warning that we sounded to all these markets as well is when your market is shut down, it's not that you're going to shut your market down. All the executive on the market board will be taken to court. They will be made to face the law. There's a law that governs that. And they may risk a minimum a jail time of 3 months imprisonment, or if fine as much as 250,000 each. To avert that, we want to appeal to all the markets in Lagos, all the stakeholders that have to do with markets in Lagos. This is not witch hunting your market. It's ensuring that we do the right thing at the first time to ensure that all the resources that have been deployed into solid waste management can be deployed to other sectors to help to make Lagos greater and a better, smarter city for us all, as our governor, Mr. Wajide Sanwo-Olu, is ready to deliver that to us. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Ibrahim, give us a sense of the kind of conversations and dialogue you're having at the State Executive Council and meetings. Did the Lagos State government consider the possible economic implications of shutting down these two markets? That's on the one hand. And of course, as well, we are in an election year, for instance. How will this kind of policies perhaps affect the re-election bid of Mr. Lagos State Governor?
Thank you. I'll tell you that environment and health are two key things that we need to be very mindful when we're talking about politics or not. If nothing is done properly, it affects everybody. If it's something that will not affect your existence or your day-to-day survival, then you can start to say, oh, I got this reason for not doing this, I got this reason for not doing this. We all remember how tirelessly our governor worked for us all to still remain here and be here during the COVID outbreak. So something as small as that will be triggered by one of these markets. Do you know that Oyingbo market is almost like a market that never sleeps? Do you know that? And do you know that majority of the food that you consume, me and you, a portion of it comes from that market? So imagine there's an outbreak of monkeypox in that market, and what happens to us? It will come to you wherever you're sitting. So that is not a matter of politics or economy, because at the end of the day, an economy with no human existence is not an economy, and we all need to know that. So we cannot afford to be playing politics with our lives, be playing politics with our health, be playing politics with the future of the generations yet unborn. So that's very, very important. The unborn generation. So we need to really, really think deep and ensure that the right thing is done. For all these stakeholder groups that we met in this process, we engaged our ministry, our parent ministry, Ministry of Environment, through Mr. Tunji Bello. We've engaged Ministry of Local Government Affairs as well. We've also engaged the chair of local government and they've all, honestly, everybody have come together to talk to these market executives even before the ultimatum was issued. And that's why collectively I can assure you that the right thing is being done to avert the closure tomorrow. But it's not about that. If we open it tomorrow and next tomorrow they do the same thing again, we will shut it down indefinitely. Thank you.
Right. At some point you mentioned the fact that there is the need for households to have the right recommended dust bin, which begins October the 1st. I want you to speak more on that, because there might be a lot of persons who do not have that information at hand.
No. So we made the request to ensure that happens at the end of June this year, and it's over 3 months now. And what we've now decided to do is, if you do, and we've been to over 22 LCD and LGAs to sensitize people about this. We've done some newspaper publications on that, and more of that to come during this week and next week as well. But the reason why we're using this approach is, even in the solid waste management environmental protection law, it is a requirement that every household in the state must have the right receptacle for their waste, just like we have a plate to eat our food. It is a requirement by law, and when that is not provided, there's a penalty for that. Clearly stipulated in local government bylaws, also in the state environmental protection law. And it's a matter of us looking at the best way to enforce that. And that's why we're recommending that. Lagos is surrounded by water, limited by space. So we can't control the rain that comes down. But what we can control is how we deal with it and how we mitigate and reduce the risks that we have. If we call ourselves a smart city, how many of us have a bin in our house? That's the question. We've discovered that over 60% of households don't have a bin. And that's why you continue to see waste in the middle of the road. That's where you see waste in canals and drainages. But if you have a bin, at least it gives a respite for the collection at least once a week for the PSP to react to that. Our PSP can come to you real time. At the point of generation, it's not possible. But even in developed countries, they have this, that they pick different kind of waste. And that's one thing we want to try and move towards, a complete development of our waste management stream. So from the 1st of October, every household that don't have a bin, we get an abatement notice. That abatement notice, you have a 3 months period to correct. 3 clear months. 3 months to correct not having the right bin, to correct not doing the right thing. And by the 1st of October, the enforcement and prosecution will commence. And when we're giving you the abatement notice, I want the legislators to know that it's not a matter of I've never seen it, I've never collected it, it never happened. It will be published in all the major dailies in the states from next week. And also what we do is when the abatement notice is served to your house, it will be served with a timestamp camera taken that is being delivered and is being positioned in the house so that when the time comes, it will serve as an evidence in the court of law for the prosecution and the enforcement of the need for you to have the right receptacle in your house. So giving you an example, a 240-liter bin is something that a family of 4 can use for 10 days before an intervention of coming to take their waste. But in a situation whereby a family of 4 do not have a bin at all, then what happens? Every day, somebody in that family of 4 will wake up and do the wrong thing. And that person that is waking up to do the wrong thing run the risk of being caught by the law, and also run the risk of infecting everybody around that area in terms of creating an outbreak in that particular environment. So that's what we want to avoid. Thank you.
But Mr. Odumboni, I think you need to be a bit more specific because you seem to be referring to a household per household. But what about buildings or a building that has various households within? And you're talking about a 240-liter bin now per household. So how do we, clear that ambiguity, so to speak? And talking about enforcement, a moment, please. What does the government have to enforce this? It sounds like a great idea because, yeah, the debt is obvious, but how are you really going to enforce that?
Thank you very much. So in terms of the recommendation, like I said, per household, when I say house, I said a household of 4. So a household of father, mother, and 2 children. So definitely that together makes a household of 4. They are recommended to have a bin, and that bin can last them for 10 days. So in a house that has a multiple occupants in there, and that's one of the things that we do. So when we get there to those houses for this enforcement and the serving of the abatement notice, we look at the household, we write the recommended bin on the abatement notice for them to know that in this particular household, in this particular block of flats, this is how many bins that you have, and this is how many bins that is missing, and this is what is recommended for you for those 3 months period. In terms of enforcement, the enforcement of this will be done by all the environmental stakeholders in the states, and I can assure you, we have more than enough. We have the LAWMA policing team that will be participating in this. We have all the 475 PSPs that will be participating in this. Our CEOs will be joining us as well. The CAI operatives in the state will be joining us as well. Neighborhood Watch, they've been working in partnership with LAWMA to ensure that is done as well. And we have the local government health officers, local government environmental supervisory officers that will be joining us in doing this as well. And we have some non-governmental organizations that have indicated interest in joining to serve this notice and also help us in the enforcement of it. We will cover the entire stretch of Lagos in ensuring that the notice reached every household by the 31st of December that do not have a bin. And then by the 1st of January, we'll commence the enforcement. And that enforcement, I can assure you, the local government chairman, the Lagos State House of Assembly, plus everybody, every other stakeholder, the judiciary arm of the state is ready to ensure that the right thing is done for all of us all to see Lagos that we all been dreaming about. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ibrahim, let me take you back to issues around waste management in the market. Let's say I have a shop in Ladipo markets or the other market, Oyingbo markets, for instance. Give us a range of how much I am supposed to pay for waste management on a monthly basis.
You know, in some of these markets, they have different stores in there. So there's been an assessment of how many times do we pick up.
It does appear we've lost his audio connection. Because I was asking just how much.
Operation
Okay.
determines the total amount of the market. So it is the market executive, it is the market traders themselves that devise it based on who pays what. So they know the sizes of each of the markets. They know the size of each of the shop. They know the capacity of each of the shop. The market gets a single bill. And that single bill that the markets get is agreed by LAWMA, the market traders, the market executive, the market masters, which is representing local government, and also some of the stakeholders in the environment committee. So it's not something that is new to them. They agree the rates, and it's something that is documented for them. So it's entirely up to them not to pay their money.
Yes, just a moment, because I'm sure we need to round off very shortly with you. I was just going to ask, so if and when you eventually shut down the markets, what's the message for those who have shops in those two markets or in either of the markets and who have been obeying, who have been paying, who have been compliant in paying this dues or levies?
And then the requirement for us all is not to just close turn a blind eye when you see your neighbor or the next person doing the wrong thing, because eventually one way or the other, it will come back to haunt you. So even if the market, when we shut this market, I can assure you that if all the traders in those markets just spend 3 hours, they would completely eradicate all the things that they need to do. It is just a will. It is a will. They need to have the will. Something has to trigger them to do the right thing. The entire Ladipo market and Oyingbo market, they can remediate every wrongdoings there within an hour, within 1 hour, within. So let us not make any excuses for them in terms of his politics time, in terms of economic value, in terms of, no. It is you know what is right. Right is right, wrong is wrong. You know what is wrong. So sometimes some of us just want a force. There's no need, we don't want that. Something the market is not easy as well. For the agency, it takes a lot of resources and a lot of planning and time. We don't want that. Just do the right thing in 1 hour. I call on all the market traders in Oyingbo market and Ladipo market. Don't spend 1 hour of your day today to look around you and ask yourself the question, if I'm not here tomorrow for 1 hour, what do I lose? And it's very simple as that. Just do the right thing for an hour, and everybody's life will be easier. Thank you.
Right. Speaking about the reviewing waste management charges, there were talks about that in recent times to reflect the current economic realities. Where are we with that? That's on the one hand. And also talk to us about Lagos State government's modern recycling plan, what it is about.
Oh, thank you very much. So, in terms of our review of waste management bill, we had a release that we will be reviewing our prices, maximum of 50% increase. In some cases, there will be no increase. In some places, there will be less than 50% increase. And what led to that is simple. We had diesel at the beginning of the year around 237. By the time of as at now, we have 760 to 800, depending on where you're getting your supply from. So invariably, the operating costs for all our PSPs have skyrocketed to almost 300% in some cases. Even the labor that they use are now collecting double the amount they were collecting as of January. Everything is changing. Dollar rate has gone up, so spare parts becomes very difficult for them to get as well, because they have to get at the higher price. So all those things together to avoid all our PSP being a going concern. And that's why we come together. We looked at it. For the 300% rise in their cost, the state government, led by Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has mitigated a lot, providing subsidy, providing fuel subsidy for them, operational subsidies for them, to try and ensure that this does not eat everybody. But it got to a stage where we know that 100% of the burden cannot automatically be carried by the state, because the cost of ensuring that that happens is quite enormous on all. And that's why we decided that instead of passing over the 300% with the state mitigation over 250%, we need to ensure that the 50% below or the 50% maximum is passed on to the tenement. And that's been working well because we've seen CDC, CDAs having a conversation with our people. It's not about throwing the bill at the customer. It's about talking to them to say, this is how much we're charging you before. This is what we're proposing to charge. Is it fair on you? You sit down with LAWMA executive there, the CDA, CDCs are there, it's agreed, it's implemented. And that's what we've been doing all across. And in cases where we had disputes, it's been referred to myself, and then we've looked at it and ensured that the right outcome is the right for people. In terms of recycling, we all remember that the 5th of September 2019 was when our governor, Waste Management launched the Lagos Recycle Initiative, then called Blue Box. It was 3 years anniversary, was done last week, and we've seen a tremendous progress and growth in recycling across the state. If I tell you that 70% of what we generate in waste in Lagos can be put to use, and that's what the aim of the governor was when he said from the beginning of his administration that he wants to recycle. And through recycling, we've been able to, over the last 3 years, we've been able to create over 12,500 jobs out there for people. We've seen a growth in number of owners of recycling company and registered recycling company in LAWMA from 3 to over 157. And today, we're having the inaugural conference for the Lagos Recyclers Associations. So they are coming together at Muson Center this morning at 10 to have their inaugural conference for them to actually set the pace for Lagos for years to come. And what are the other successes that we've achieved? The first bottle-to-bottle production factory in West Africa. I've now seen that we have a resource here that can service them. And that's why they are coming to Lagos. They already started operation in Lagos, and by October, the full operation will start. And what is the impact of that for Lagosians? That company eventually will be taking 4.5 million bottles out of the system on a daily basis, which means that you can be rest assured that in the future, you will not look at your drainages and see bottles in them. The value of recyclables, for example, I don't pick on a bottle, is gone from 15 naira from the launch when we did that in September 2019 to now 170 naira. And that's not inflation related. That's because there's a value chain that's been looked after. So for us, all in all, we know recycling is a sector that still has over 80 billion annually to benefit from. So we're calling on all the unemployed youths out there, all the people, all the traders that want to earn extra money out there. The bottles that you have around you, the cans and tins and irons that you have around you are all recyclables, and we are ready to put them all to use. We are not only recycling bottles and even our organic waste, which is 40% of our waste. In our Odumboni plant with Mesa Healthcare, we're making 500 bags of fertilizer daily, and I know our government is looking at that to ensure that we can boost that to support the Lagos State agri sector as well. So we're doing a lot in LAWMA to create sustainability where we will then start moving towards zero waste. And I know that we might be curious to see what happens to some of our existing landfill and dump site. We want to move away from that culture between the next 5 years and 10 years. And the roadmap for that is if we use all the 70% that are recyclables and we use 40% that are organic waste, then the rest can be combustible, can be converted, and then we can have a zero waste in Lagos through waste to energy, waste to composting, and other initiatives that might come. But all in all, recycling has been one of the major success of this administration in terms of creation of value for Lagosians. Thank you.
Indeed. Right. As much as we're looking at the bigger picture for Lagos State and the intention towards the closure of some of this market, talking about Ladipo and Oyingbo markets, is noble. We do hope that there can be some resolutions reached today to ensure that that does not happen tomorrow. We must thank you, Managing Director and CEO, Lagos Waste Management Authority, Ibrahim Odumboni, for your time on The Breakfast Show.